All right, hello everyone. Let's move on into the Zerg. Now, um, Zerg play overall, we've seen that Zerg is generally pretty strong already. They're able to macro up very quickly. They have ways of dealing with harassment, but once you get out of that early game where you have your 60 drones, 70 drones, and are really running on all 6 or 8 cylinders or all 4 hatcheries type of deal, what does Zerg really have? Now, this is what I like to see from Zerg. And the Hydralisk movement being an upgrade at layer, this is something that I have been looking and waiting and hoping to see coming for Zerg. Hydralisks have really been an iconic unit that was almost semi debuffed or semi nerfed to a point where they weren't used just because roaches were such a superior unit. When you think about it this way, the roach has more hit points, does less damage, but it moves faster than a hydralisk significantly. Then roaches just seem the better option, just because you're trying to swarm with things and you know you're going to end up losing units. But if as long as you can continue to swarm, that first unit that gets to the target mean that there's going to be more units reaching there as well, and roaches just did that better. Now, second buff, Mutalisk getting a buff to speed or acceleration. I don't know if I quite need to see a buff to the speed of a Mutalisk. I wouldn't mind a buff to the acceleration, perhaps similar to how Phoenixes are, where they can move around very, very quickly. Not attack and move, but being able to move around and bank and reposition themselves very, very quickly. That would be nice to see as well. Now, the change to an Ultralisk. Ultralisk change to be good versus all ground. This I am a little bit concerned about. The reason, or one of the things that I know Blizzard thinks is that Ultralisks are countered by air units. Now, if you take a look at the number of air units available to Protoss, they have the Void Ray, very effective against Ultralisks. Tempest now, very effective against Ultralisks. Carrier, I wouldn't say, like, it obviously naturally counters, but I wouldn't say that the Carrier is your go-to guy of choice if you're trying to go up against an Ultralisk. Now, if you look at the Terran options are either going to be Banshee or Battlecruiser, and both of those units there are not highly effective against Ultralisks because they generally attack quickly with low amounts of damage. Ultralisks, and that's also the reason why carriers aren't that good against Ultralisks. Ultralisks, with their naturally higher armor, means that they're going to mitigate much of that damage much more quickly than, say, a Void Ray's attack. I would be curious to see a fully upgraded Void Ray versus 2 fully upgraded Banshees, and those are both the proper counter units, and who comes out on top when trying to shoot down an Ultralisk. I would pretty much bet that the Void Ray actually comes out ahead, where it's dealing almost like 50-60 damage a second, and even after the armor most likely, while the Terran is maybe dealing 20 damage, 12, yeah, maybe 20 damage a second about, or 40 damage a second. So and you're also looking at the cost of a Banshee versus the cost of Void Ray, the amount of supply. The Void Ray really just comes out ahead. So the Ultralisks, I am a bit concerned there, but I do understand that they want to make the Ultralisks a little bit better. It's just going to have to be with Terran in consideration as well, which is always something of a concern when you're dealing with 3 races. You buff one, you have to nerf another, and I think one of the reasons why Brood War was so insanely popular was that there were 3 such distinct, unique races, but overall, things still seemed very balanced. Blizzard is still trying to get there with StarCraft 2. I believe that they can do it. I believe that they will do it. It's just going to be a matter of time, but I am liking the steps that they're taking. Now, nerf Infestor quite heavily. This statement seems very loaded, where 9 out of the 10 people who don't play Zerg go, thank God, finally, when in actuality, we really don't know quite what that means. Are they going to nerf infested Terrans? I know that there was the idea of lowering the hit points on eggs so that that you can destroy them before they actually hatch. Does that mean another adjustment to fungal growth? or what is that? What exactly does that mean, right? I'm not 100% quite sure. Also, make it easier to so with the infestor, I'm a little bit curious about that. Maybe if they do fungal growth where it doesn't flat out stop units, but it slows down units, and they move the duration back up to 8 seconds. I remember a lot of people when Blizzard announced that they were changing fungal growth from 8 seconds down to 4. People were like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a nerf." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a buff. It's doing so much more damage now per second." And Zerg players, it's very easy for Zerg players to mass infestors. So the fact that it's killing units faster, it may take more energy to hold them longer, but it kills units faster, which is a real strong benefit there. Now, Zerg also making it easier to unburrow and reposition swarm hosts. I don't necessarily see why it needs to be easier. I think it's a 3 to 4 second burrow time. I think the unburrow time is actually even faster. And if it's a stationary long range siege unit, I don't know if it's easier or harder to reposition than say siege tanks, but it can't be made easier than siege tanks, can it? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Now let's move on to Protoss.